So as I previously hinted at, I'm here to talk about and review the clash between Wanheng Menayothin and Melvin Jerusalem for Wanheng Menayothin's WBC World Minimumweight title. Of course, Menayothin is also known as Kayapan Munsi. That's where you'll find him under BoxRec, but he goes by the sponsor name Wanheng Menayothin, his boxing alias. But he advanced to 45-0 with 17 knockouts, with Melvin Jerusalem falling to 11-1 with 7 knockouts, in what was a really good fight, really close fight as well. Early on, it seemed like Melvin Jerusalem, his overall hand speed and his activity to begin with was giving Wanheng a lot of trouble. Wanheng tends to be a little bit of a slower starter. Tends to be a little bit more methodical. He usually the first round especially will be more of a filling out round, but Jerusalem was just putting so much volume and with so as much hand speed as he had that he was given a lot of difficulty to Kayapan Munsi. It was really just tough for him to, it appeared, get his timing down very much. Jerusalem was hitting him with a lot of combinations. Kayapan, aka Wenheng, wasn't quite getting his overall movement together, his head movement, his torso movement, like he tends to do. Um, and so he was somewhat of a sitting duck for Jerusalem's superior hand speed early on. Wasn't really until the third round where Wanheng really started to get into rhythm, and once he got into a rhythm, he looked like the Wanheng that I'm definitely used to seeing, and that some of you are used to seeing that have watched his previous fights. Where once he gets into that rhythm and his entire body's moving, it's like his head's moving, his torso's moving, his shoulders are moving. He's blocking well, he's catching and shooting really well. He's a difficult uh, opponent to deal with, just because of the fact that he's shooting everything really sharp up the middle. Jerusalem was actually having a lot of success though, as I mentioned before, though early on, with kind of looping his right hand just around Wenheng's high left hand. He tends to keep a pretty high guard, and Jerusalem was just looping the shot just around him and doing pretty well doing that. He was also landing the uppercut, the right uppercut especially, with fair regularity, a lot more regularity than you'd probably be used to seeing with that uppercut. But he started to fall away from that as it got into the middle rounds, which I think started to hurt him a little bit. Once Wenheng started to get into that rhythm, he was really making it very difficult for Melvin Jerusalem to get his shots off with as much crispness as he had early on. And also, I think just the fact that Jerusalem, being only 11 fights into his career before this fight, hadn't really gone too many rounds like that. The longest he had gone was a 10-rounder. Before that, it was pretty much all 8-rounders and shorter, and a lot of knockouts. Basically, he stopped a lot of guys within a few rounds. So this was really his first fight going the distance, especially against a well-proven champion, and a guy that has a significant number of fights greater than he does. But yeah, once Wanheng started getting to that rhythm, he was really difficult. But even still, Jerusalem was still fighting back very scrappily, and probably by about, I'd say, the sixth or seventh round, it seemed like it was pretty much all even. Once it got to the eighth round, though, Wanheng wound up winning that round 10-8 because of the fact that the judge deducted a point from Melvin Jerusalem for a low blow. I actually thought that was pretty premature. I felt like that he probably could have given him one or just a hard warning basically for that, because they had both been kind of landing borderline or like slightly low shots. I think it might have just been the fact that it was as hard of a shot as it was, and it was as low as it was. It was one of those shots that kind of hit Wanheng just above the thigh, like almost like where your leg connects into your like groin area, like your lower abdominal. But up until that point, it was a pretty neck and neck fight. Jerusalem had controlled a lot of the earlier rounds. Menayothin started to really come on in the mid rounds. But beyond the eighth, it was very much a tit for tat battle. Melvin Jerusalem seemed to catch a second wind, where in the middle rounds it seemed like his punches started to lose some steam, and the hand speed advantage that he had early on was pretty much completely negated. And as a matter of fact, it seemed like in those mid rounds, Wenheng had the higher. I mean, just the higher velocity punches and the quicker hand speed. And Jerusalem was almost like, it seemed like part of it was with that he was winded, and part of it was that he was almost trading the hand speed for more thudding power, just trying to land those hard shots and trying to knock Wanheng off balance the way that he had done so earlier on. He had managed to catch Wanheng early on and knock him off balance a couple of times. No time where either of them was dropped. There was definitely a body shot that Wanheng landed. I believe it was in the fifth round that appeared to buckle Jerusalem for a couple of seconds. But otherwise, I mean, it was very much tit for tat battle, and that held through into the later rounds as well. It was interesting because the WBC had open scoring for this fight, as they tend to do with most of their fights outside the United States. And through 4 rounds, the judges had it all even. Through 8 rounds, though, they had Wanheng fairly comfortably ahead. It looked like he was up by about 2 to 3 points on all three judges' scorecards. And it seemed like they started to score the last few rounds for Melvin Jerusalem as opposed to Wanheng, because it seemed like he started to kind of catch a second wind, and he finished really strong. To me, I thought that the last 4 rounds were pretty much split between the two, and for my scorecard, that's basically what saved the day for Wanheng. It's like he was kind of down, and he managed to scrape together a couple of rounds and basically keep his title by doing that. I scored it 114 to 113 for Wanheng. Although I really do object to the point being deducted, so to me this was pretty much an even fight. This was pretty much a draw type fight. The judges wound up having it 114 to 113 2 times, both for Wanheng, and then the third judge had it 115 to 113 also for Wanheng. So he basically scraped together a solid but very close fight. He kind of started slow against Jerusalem, and that almost cost him. And Jerusalem finished pretty strong as well. It just goes to show you that sometimes some of these fighters that may not necessarily have even a lot of experience can be, just hungry young lions ready to go for the gusto and take your belt home with them, basically, just pull off a big upset and such. It reminds me almost a little bit of last year, the big upset with Byron Rojas that he pulled off over Hickey Butler. And as a matter of fact, I think that Byron Rojas versus Wanheng Menayothin would be a fantastic fight, considering the level of difficulty that both Jerusalem and Wanheng's opponent 2 fights ago, Saul Juarez, gave Wanheng just with their hand speed and overall activity. I think that somebody like Rojas could be a very, very difficult opponent for him, just stylistically speaking. But of course, I wouldn't mind seeing him against the other champions as well. Katsunari Takayama, Nakatsuki Freshmart, Jose Argumedo. All of those fights to me are very compelling and would be fantastic fights to watch. As for Melvin Jerusalem, man, I was really impressed with his overall ability. I mean, for him to come in, at age 22, only 11 fights into his career, and fight off one of the better fighters in the division, if not the best fighter in the division, says a lot about the kid. He also, his only other world champion, or I guess like contender level opponent really, that he had fought before this fight was Florante Candes, who himself was a champion a few years back, and had himself fought a number of guys that had held belts at one time or another at 105 and 108 pounds. So for Melvin Jerusalem, he's definitely going to be a name that I'm looking at in the future. He's a fighter that, who knows, he may not just stop at 105. We may see him at 108 as well in the near future. But he's a guy that seems like he has a lot of potential. Just a pretty good skill set, good hand speed. Really, it seemed like what kind of let him down in this fight was just his lack of experience, going a lot of rounds, a lot of hard rounds, and just the conditioning that kind of goes along with that experience as well. But I'd say it was really more the experience, considering the fact that even in the later rounds, he started to kind of catch a second wind, and get back on into a competitive nature with Wanheng. It was really the middle rounds that let him down in that regard. But at the same time, conditioning can definitely help with that as well. But it's a lot different to call it from outside and being inside there against somebody that's like Wanheng. Just once he gets going, once he gets into his rhythm, he's really, really tough to defeat, because it's like that. There's certain fighters, that you'll see that they might not be in that rhythm at all times, but once they get into it, it's almost like they're like a train, like a locomotive. They're just coming at you, and they're sharper, and landing clean combinations, good shots to the body, good shots to the head, and they're really difficult to deal with once they get into that rhythm. It's like you almost have to catch them cold before they ever get into that rhythm and draw them into an entirely different type of fight, which Jerusalem, it seemed like he was starting to do, but he's kind of lost the plot. It seemed like there, especially in the third round. Once Wanheng got into that rhythm, that's when Jerusalem started to slow down just a tad, and that's just that slowing down, just that split second of timing slowing down is really what allowed Wanheng to claw his way into the fight and basically get the victory on the scorecards, essentially. But was definitely a very solid fight. I'm going to put the link in the description, as I tend to do. And I hope you guys really enjoy it. This was definitely one of the better fights at 105 pounds recently. You know, there've actually been quite a few really good fights. You know, Wanheng's fight with Saul Juarez was really solid. The Jose Argumedo versus Jose Jimenez fight was a fun fight to watch, as well as Nakatsuki Fushmat's clash against Badr Rojas. That was a really fun fight to watch as well. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Kayapan Munsi, aka Wanheng Menayothin, is 45-0, 17 knockouts now. And we'll see if he manages to be able to potentially break that 49-0 record as it stands right now in terms of undefeated champions. You know, and that's assuming that Wanheng is able to get there and then retire while he's undefeated as well, because, you know, there have been fighters that have gone beyond that, but they wound up losing much later on. But that's pretty much it for this video, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.